Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? I'm going to say very quick good morning to Lou Carney. I can't trigger her normal hello because she's over on Instagram. Morning, Lou. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're fully recovered from your exertions at the Executive Hire Show. Was that last week? Was last week. Gone already. Gone already. Good morning to thank you. Dan knows me very, very well, reminding me to put my mic on. I believe it's on right now. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm going to say good morning to Jim Turner, who's just joined us. I'm going to trigger Jim's button right now. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to come back to this in just a second. Gary Muirhead said, fantastic show last night. As always, Mark, thank you very much indeed. Graham Williams, our friend Footy, said, show last night was actually brilliant. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed. Chris Ford has just joined us as well. Chris was there last night as well. I do want to have a quick word about last night's show before we kick off. First of all, a huge thank you to Andy Stevens for giving up his time to help us deliver what I believe to be a very important show last night. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of those of you that took part, turned up, drove the conversation. But I also need to make a very quick apology to Peter McKenna and to anyone else within the industry that is disabled and who feel they are discriminated against because of that disability. In the monologue to last night's show, I mentioned a number of groups that are often on the wrong end of discrimination: women, LGBTQ, and those from the any ethnic minorities. But I forgot to mention disabled people as an unforgivable oversight, particularly as I know Peter, just unforgivable. So, Peter, if you're watching, my humblest of humble apologies. I promise to try harder in the future. I do mean that. That was a terrible oversight. Now, before we get into the show, for those of you that don't read Demolition News, we have the very sad news of yet another high-profile UK demolition contractor going under. Rye Demolition now joins Squibb, McCormack, Waldridge and BlueCon, bringing to 5 the number of demolition companies that have failed in just 4 months. I always hate reporting on these things at the best of times, but this one feels worse because I really like the boss of Simon Barlow. He's been very good to me and to Demolition News over the years. I get the impression he really did do everything in his power to pull the company back from the brink. I'd like to think he will bounce back. I sincerely hope he does. You can't keep a good man down, and Simon is most definitely a good man. But 5 in 4 months, how many more are we going to miss? How many more are we going to lose? I'm not going to name names, but I had a very interesting point come through on email last night in response to a thing that I wrote recently, who suggested that the impact of the CMA fines has not been that it's driven companies out of business, but it is basically, according to the guy that sent it to me, who's within the industry, he reckons that it has opened the way, rather than dealing with companies that may or may not have been involved in collusion. He reckons that some major contractors are now preferring to hand out demolition work to those in groundworks and to those in concrete frame installation. It's an interesting point. Andy Dalvell's just joined us as well. Morning. Working on the wobbliest building I've ever worked on. Very tight, and take my time on this one. Well, pay attention. Don't listen to me. You go and do that. That's far more important. And Ken Hatcher says he missed the show last night. It's there. It's on YouTube. If I have time and if I have the inclination, I may even play you my opening monologue from last night when we get to the chat afterwards, but we do need to crack on, I think. So without further ado, let me roll the intro. Let me post the question. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Just as soon as I can find the intro. It's here somewhere. Try one more time to get the question of the day to appear. Got there at the end. Fantastic stuff. I'm going to go back over to the chat. Should the demolition industry be looking at other avenues of work rather than just relying on its industry to keep them afloat? A lot of them have. A lot of them have. You think about the likes of Keltbray, who have moved so successfully into industries like rail that they're not really a demolition contractor anymore. But there's kind of a counter argument to that. I take your point, and I think you've got a very good point. And I do think, putting all your eggs in one basket is probably not such a great idea. But by the same token, that's not your area of expertise potentially, and are you spreading yourself too thin? That would be my question. Ken Hatcher, I've just said you can watch last night's show on repeat, but he likes to watch live. Then be here. Step away from the pizza and be here. That would be my advice. I will be playing that clip for you a bit later in the show. I've just posted the question of the day. We'll come back to that in a second, but it is Thursday, the 22nd of February, 2024. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's loader-laden show, we're loading with Hidromek, we're loading with LiuGong, and we're loading with MultiOne. We're back out on site with CJ Charlton Group, plus we're going to get you in the Intermat mood with Moog. But before all of that, we've got the small matter of today's mystery machine. So let's have a look at this. Right, people, I strongly suggest you put your glasses on because I'm about to reveal to you a bit of today's mystery machine. Can you figure it out from that? I'm thinking not, but then our friend Dan Cullen figured out yesterday's mystery machine from a wheel. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if somebody got it from that, but it's not a lot to work with, I grant you that. I'll leave it just a little bit longer because I know a lot of people are trying to see it. Good morning to Boss Demolition, who have just joined us over on Instagram. Good of you to join us. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Dan Cullen has taken a wild stab at a Hyundai 210. It is not that. It is not that. Let me take it off the screen. While you're still trying to figure that out, what say I remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yes, our question of today, quite simply, is this. What was the scariest moment of your life? Has there been a time when your life has flashed before your eyes? Have you ever thought to yourself, well, this is it? Personally, having a rifle stuck in my neck at Alexandria Port in Egypt would be a particular highlight for me. It was made worse by the fact that as I neither walk nor talk like an Egyptian, I couldn't even plead for my life. But as you can tell, I made it out alive. What about you? Let us know in the chat. What has been the scariest moment of your life? I'd love to hear from you. Glenn Johnston should join us. Good morning, Glenn. I tell you what, let me have a very good look at these because we've had some new arrivals. Mick Norton's here as well. Morning, Mick. Dan Cullen is going to take another stab at the Volvo EC140. It is not that. I'll show you a bit more in a second. Ken Hatcher is going with the Hyundai 330 HL. It is not that. Gary is going with the ECR 88 from Volvo. It is not that. Andy Darvell, is it a deer forestry machine? I would not do that to you. I would not do that to you. And I'm going to say good morning to Mark Fitz, who's just said on Instagram, on the Daily. Yes, you are. You officially, you are on the Daily Show. Not the Daily Show, because that's way better than this, but you get the idea. Let me show you a bit more of this mystery machine before I get myself all confused. You've seen that. Now you have that. Does that help at all? Does that help at all? I just go back to Andy Darvell. I'm just going to say I wouldn't impose a forestry machine on you because that would be unkind. It is a construction product. I'll tell you that much. Which is not really a huge clue, but that's what you've got to work with. Keep those guesses coming in, and we will come back to that at the end of the show. And we'll also come back with your thoughts on the question of the day. What was the scariest moment of your life? And while you're mulling that over, let me do this. Mark Fitz over on Instagram has just said it's a 210. It is not a 210. Graham Footy Williams says it's a JCB. It is not. And Daniel Man Cullen says it's a JS 200. It's not that either. Keep the guesses coming in, people. Now, I have no idea how or why this happened, but for some reason, today's show is driven almost entirely by wheel loaders. Still, I guess it will give you an opportunity to compare and contrast machines from three very different manufacturers. We're going to start today's Loader Fest with this beauty from the fine folks at Hidromek. Pretty smart, I think you'll agree. Please stick around because in a moment we'll be back loading, this time with LiuGong. Over to Instagram, the bearded plant operator has joined us. Good morning to you, sir. We've had some more guesses on our mystery machine, which currently looks like that. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen has gone for Komatsu 210. It is not. Footy has gone for Komatsu. It is not. LiuGong. It is not. Sumitomo 220, not. Chris Ford, Hyundai 210, it is not. However, somebody has got quite close. And I can't say, there we are. Jonathan Duras has gone for New Holland Kobelco. Now, bearing in mind, we are looking for specific makes and models. Love to get your thoughts on that. I can tell Dan Cullen it is not an XCMG 200, but keep those guesses coming in. And in actual fact, just out of the sheer kindness of my heart, let me put this up on there and I'll give you a little bit more. There you are. It tells you absolutely squat, doesn't it? Dan Cullen has gone with the Kobelco SK210. It is not. Andy Darvell has gone with the SK400. It is not. Boss Demolition over on Instagram has gone for the New Holland 330. It is not. You're all close, but nobody's got the cigar yet. Keep the guesses coming in. Now, we do need to do something else, don't we? I think we need to do this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I promise you another wheel loader, and another wheel loader you shall jolly well have. And this time it comes from LiuGong land. Yeah, we will be back with another wheel loader. Bit different this time, a bit later in the show. Now, going back to our mystery machine, which I know looks like that. We've had lots and lots of guesses. We've had Dan Cullen going for the SK210 from Kobelco. No, it is not. Andy Darville going for the SK400. It is not. Jonathan Duras, SK380. It is not that either. It is not a Kobelco SK230. It is not the New Holland E230 CSR. It is not the Kobelco SK500. Andy, I'm sorry, you're close, but no cigar. Dan Cullen, not the Kobelco 350-11, and it is not the Kato 820. It's something else. You'll kick yourself, but you're very close. I tell you what, let me give you a little bit more, see if that helps. Not at all. Not at all. Let me know what you think that is. Everybody, you're all honing in on the right answer, but you're not quite there yet. Peter McKenna has just gone with New Holland E265. It is not one of those. And who have we got here? Mick Norton. I would rather hear the Chinese loader engine than the music. I'll bear that in mind next time around. And I've just had an email from Mick Saunders, who I'll come back to that if I get a chance. There we are, Mick Saunders saying, morning, a bit late, but I just sent you an email. I'll go and have a look while I'm playing a video in just a moment. Yes, let's do some of... I'm going to tell Andy Darvell very quickly. No, it's not that either. You're all so close, but you're not quite there. Take that away, and let's put one of these on the screen. It's not a Yanmar 8-tonner either, I'll tell you that much. Now, where were we? Yes, I know exactly where we were. It's been a while, been quite a long while actually, since we last caught up with Chris Charlton and his crew at CJ Charlton Group. But the company's got a new on-site video out, so sit back and enjoy this. You enjoy this while I sit back and read what Mick Saunders has sent to me. And I'm just going to say, bearded plant operator, the Kobelco SK350 LC-11. You're that close, but you're not right. And Titan Kelly over on Instagram, it's not a Komatsu either. So I'm going to read a letter. You have a look at this.
Hi, Chris Charlton here. Welcome back to another video. This is our first video of 2024. And we are in Peterborough, where we're carrying out full demolition of a large commercial property. CJ Charlton Group have been appointed by our client to carry out asbestos removal, full demolition and crushing of all material on site before handing over ready for the groundwork contractor. On site today, we've got our EC235 Volvo hydraulic excavator. This is equipped with a Diarco selector grab. This equipment will be carrying out the full demolition and crushing on this project. Due to the close proximity of neighbouring properties, we had a meeting with all the local residents and explained to them what our works on site involve and what we would do to minimise any disruption. As you can see in the background, we've got our Motorfog MF10 dust suppression unit. Obviously today with this weather, we don't really need it because there isn't much dust. With the machine and the selector grab, he's separating all the materials for recycling. So basically we'll put to one side all the materials that are recyclable and the materials that are non-recyclable. All your scrap metals, your ferrous and your non-ferrous metals as well will get put separate. Our aim as a company is to be as sustainable as possible and also recycle in every way that we can. At CJ Charlton Group, we are continuing to raise the standards in demolition. We are constantly invested in training and new equipment so that our clients get the best from our services. Thank you guys for watching. We're looking forward to bringing you more videos and more insight into CJ Charlton Group in 2024.
Yeah, today's mystery machine appears to be giving you a bit of grief, I would say. Let me add this to the show. There we are. Our bearded plant operator over on Instagram has taken a swing at the SK390 LC-11. No. And he's also had a go at the SK350 DLC-11. No. It's neither of those things. Who else did we have? Dan Cullen has gone with the Sumitomo SH200. It is not. Gary Muirhead has gone with a New Holland E215 BEL. It is not that. Dan has also gone with the SK850 LC-10E. It is none of those things. It is none of those things. Would you like to see our friend bearded plant operator just gave up? Should I give you a little bit more? I don't know how helpful this is going to be, but there you are. There's a little bit more. If anybody has got any guesses on that, I'd love to hear from you. Who else have we got? Dan has gone for the SK295-9. It is not that. Chris Ford says the Sany 215. It is not that. Have I got you again? I've already beaten you once this week. I wonder if I can beat you again. We shall see. We shall see. Now we need to do a thing, don't we? We need to do this thing.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Our bearded plant operator has gone for the SK260 LC-11. It is not. Dan Cullen has gone for the SK260. It is not. You're that close. That close. You wouldn't believe it. I do want to go back to this one from Mick, who says, and I totally concur with this, much respect to Chris Charlton, a man who is not flash and just gets on with what ends up a good, clean job. Yes, he does, which is why I like spending time with Chris. Just goes about his business, getting the job done properly, as you're supposed to. Now, we've already seen a pair of wheel loaders this morning, one from Hidromek and the other from LiuGong. Our final loader of the day is a bit different. In fact, I'm not even sure if it qualifies as a wheel loader, but it kind of doesn't qualify as a track loader either. Take a look. Yeah, some mixed comments on that. We're going to go back to, who was it said? It was Scorchio. Somebody said, yeah, there you are, Andy Darwell. That little track loader looks the bollocks. Scorchio, he says. Mick Norton, rather less impressed, says track drives look a bit vulnerable in heavy conditions on that bastardized loader. Chris Ford says, wonder if you could fetch all 4 tracks off when they get a bit of wet. I'm sure you can. Sure you can. Now, I do need to tell you, we have one more film to play you today. It's Intermat related, and I've got to dredge it off my hard drive in just a moment. And I will be doing that, but I can tell you we still haven't had a correct answer on our mystery machine. There is Dan Cullen's latest guess. He's gone for the SK200 N-11. It is not that. Dan has also said, tidy little load of that. So this is going to be your final glimpse of the machine. If you don't get it between now and the end of our Intermat related film, I win again. There you are. There's a little bit more a boom for you. Does that help you in any way, shape, or form? I'm guessing it probably doesn't. Please keep the guesses coming in. We've got one more film to play you, and I will be doing it just as soon as I've played this. Now, the question of the day today relates to scariest moment of your life. Mick Saunders has come up with an answer in which he references his putty coming undone. I'm glad somebody else asked because I don't know what that is either. There's Peter McKenna asking that very question. What's a putty? We need to know what a putty is before I reveal that story. Now, we come to our final film of the day, and it is, in fact, our final film of the week, because tomorrow's show will be dedicated to the memory of the 4 men that lost their lives so tragically at the Didcot Power Station 8 years ago tomorrow. It's going to be a completely unscripted show, no videos, no adverts, no question of the day, no mystery machine, none of that stuff and nonsense. I'll come back to that in just a second. So this is going to be our final film of the day and of the week. I am going to throw this up from Chris Ford, where we're talking about the mystery machine. A bit like the van on the mystery machine, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo, and nor has anybody else. But that's what you've got to work with. That's all I can show you before I do the big reveal. Now, while you're thinking about that, let me take that off the screen and let me dredge this final film, this Intermat-related film, off my hard drive just as soon as I can find it. It is this one.
From Moog Construction, the market manager. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in April at Intermat. So when it comes to sustainability, decarbonization, we're really offering the Z-Quip project for retrofitting construction vehicles. So what we're doing with Z-Quip is basically it's a modular type system. So we can do this with any manufacturer's machines. We're targeting 5-ton to about 50-ton machines. And basically we can take the diesel engine out, we can replace it with multiple Z-Quip modules, 140 kilowatt, 70 kilowatt type modules. Depending on the machine size, we can retrofit it with a certain amount of modules. And we can convert that with an electric motor and keeping the hydraulic system the same. So you'll keep the same performance, but you'll have zero emission machine. It's with the modules on the machines. I'll give you an example. An excavator might take 5 modules. You're only using energy from basically one module at a time. So when that gets depleted, you can swap out the modules that you might have on another machine on the site or on the site itself. The modules are also fast chargeable in under an hour. With the modules, number one, if you have like an excavator, I'll give you an example with 5 modules, you don't really need to purchase all 5 modules depending on the work that you do. You may just run the machine on 3 modules. If you need to run extra long run time, you can add another module to keep the machine running. The modules can be fast chargeable. You can keep a module on site and that can be fast charged at the same time. So if you need it, you can swap that out and again, increase your run time. The other thing you do is you could purchase extra modules and have those delivered by vehicle. So as you're watching the machine and the energy deplete, you can always make sure that the machine's available to run. There's two types of the same basic footprint, but you can switch those between machines. So if one day you're just using your excavator and you have extra Z-Quip modules on your wheel loader, you can take it off the wheel loader and put it on the excavator, and you can maintain your job. The Z-Quip solution, it really is a lower cost way to enter an electric market. So in some cases you have to buy, what we call a capital expense. So you have to buy a fully electric machine. In this case with the retrofit, and just buying, a smaller amount of modules, you don't have to pay the full expense up front, but you can add modules as you go and as you need, as you learn about electric machines. I think the most key thing is really on the Z-Quip side is we want to let them know that we've made electrification easy. That's really the intent of Z-Quip. So we really don't want people in the construction industry to worry about things like runtime, serviceability. All of the things that Z-Quip offers really takes those worries away. We also want to make sure we're not changing their daily operations, or sometimes what we call con-ops or construction operations. We've basically modeled Z-Quip to actually model what they do today with diesel fuel. So it should be pretty straightforward and easy for people to convert to electric machines. We got nominated for the Z-Quip, which we've been talking about, which is really electric retrofit systems, but also our all-electric TerraTech ecosystem, which is dedicated to more towards OEMs for electric machinery. So I'll explain the TerraTech ecosystem a little bit. So, for people who want to go with electric, Moog's been with electric machinery for decades now, so we're very comfortable with that. So what we supply there is basically an electric vehicle control module, servo drives and motors for traction motors, we'll say, and also electric cylinders. So we can convert the entire machine to electric. And when I say all electric, I mean no hydraulics at all. And with the electric system, you almost gain sort of robotics control. With electrics and so forth, it's very tunable type of machine, and you get very fine control. So we're pretty excited about that, not just for getting electric and sustainable machines, but what that means for adding automated functions, digitizing the machine, and eventually you'll be able to do more automated and autonomous functions.
Right. I'm going to throw over very quickly to Mick Norton, who says, Z-Quip, but late to the party, as we'll know, we're on the cusp of the hydrogen solution. Difference is, you can have the Z-Quip or the Z-Quip today. You can't have hydrogen until we can get access to hydrogen. That's my thoughts on that. Jonathan Duras with the last guess, because I'm about to reveal it. He has gone for the SK260-11 H&W. It is none of those things. I can tell you. In fact, I can go one stage better than that. I can even show you. The mystery machine is a Kobelco SK300. I'm sincerely hoping that I haven't missed somebody saying that it's the SK300. I deliberately threw you off. That is actually an American machine, hence the color. It's an American machine. I hope we have those over here. Morning, Chris Hynett just joined us over on Instagram as well. It is the SK300. So the second time this week, I win. I win. I may have cheated a bit, but I win. That's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I am going to come back in just a second to talk about lots of other things. We'll come back to that in just a few moments. So I'm going to roll the outro just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. See you all very soon. I'll be back tomorrow. The show will be very different. No videos or anything like that. It's going to be Didcot related, very somber, very serious. If you decide to duck out, I wouldn't blame you in the least, because it won't be a bundle of laughs. But if you do have the time and inclination, I will be back with the Craic immediately after this. We're going to play a final word from our key show sponsor. I'm going to play you my intro from last night's show, and then we're going to get into things like the question of the day and all things electric and hydrogen, what the most scared you ever were in your life. And we're also going to find out what putties are. We are, but that will be after this. Now, I know most of you were here last night. Peter McKenna has just come back. I had to walk off site to get to my car. Cadix Health and Safety Executive Rep has agreed with me with regards to parking in the visitor parking due to my disability. Win-win, common sense prevails. How very rarely that happens. I'm going to play you a thing now. This was my intro to last night's show. just to make sure that you've seen it. And if you didn't see it, maybe you'll go back and watch the video. If you did see it and you'd like a repeat, you can watch along, because I'd still like to get your feedback on this. This is how I opened last night's show. Imagine a world in which the many exist purely to satisfy the demands of the few. A world in which the many are constantly scrutinized, criticized, and penalized by the few. A world in which many are forced to endure conditions so bad that some seek solace in booze or drugs, while others choose to take their own lives rather than continue. And that is not the opening lines of a dystopian Orwellian novel, nor is it in an Illuminati conspiracy fever dream. For many, that is the reality of the construction industry today. It's an industry that is controlled by a tiny elite that lays down the rules and regulations they insist that everyone follows. An industry with a workplace that is often so toxic that an alarming number of workers take their own lives each year. An industry so stressful that many are forced to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs. An industry in which workers are expected to do the impossible in less time than it would take to accomplish the possible. Where racism, sexism, and homophobia are widely dismissed as banter, where workers die or are injured doing the bidding of those in charge, where those same workers are kept compliant by the constant unspoken threat of unemployment, where they cannot move without a piece of plastic bestowed upon them by the powers that be, and where those workers have been robbed of their ability to complain or fight back against an often oppressive work regime. Those at the top of the industry put on their suits, their shirts and their ties. They award themselves medals and medallions. They meet in expensive hotels and conference centres to dictate the industry's direction of travel, the standards they expect to be met and the rules they expect to be followed. Meanwhile, the millions that work within the sector, the one with the dirty hands and the dirty boots, have no forum through which to air their views, their concerns, their fears, hopes and aspirations. Over a course of decades, they have been rendered effectively voiceless. Right, now we'll start the chat. Yeah, that sounds about right. How are we all doing today? I'm going to start with that one from Dan Cullen, who says, didn't make it last night. Not a problem at all, Dan. You can watch it on catch-up should you so desire. If you don't desire, then don't. I'll take it either way. I'd rather you watched it, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if you don't. Dan was actually the first on the show. He said top of the morning. And he actually said that at 9:59, a full minute before we started the show itself. He then came back and said good morning again, I think. In actual fact, I think he said howdy. Footy was here as well. Morning, Footy. Gary Muirhead, always a pleasure. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Gary. I think I may be going over to a lot of your questions of the day next week, Gary, because I'm starting to run out. So if anybody's got any good ideas for questions of the day, please let me know. Graham Footy Williams says show last night was actually brilliant. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I think our friend Andy Stevens gave a very good account of himself. Ram Demolition just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning to you. Thank you for being here. Whereabouts in the world are you? Ram Demolition. Not come across that name before. Love to hear from you. Dan Cullen, very kind. If somebody could do that every single day while the intro is playing, that would be really useful, because apparently I can ignore a post-it note. Jim Turner said good morning. Morning, Jim. Gary, thank you for that fantastic show last night, as always. You know, it's a weird one, isn't it? Last night was basically a distillation of everything that we talk about on a daily basis. You know, all of those things that we've mentioned in the past, all condensed into one big show. Maybe we need to do it a bit more often. Just on the subject of other shows, obviously we've got our Didcot show tomorrow. We've got our NRMM, non-road mobile machinery show, on Wednesday next week with Tim Burnhope from JCB. But I've been going through some notes that I made a few weeks ago when we were all talking, and I can see that I do need to do something. I think this was Gary's suggestion, actually, do a dedicated autonomous machine show. I realise it will upset some who are concerned about jobs and employment, rightly so, I believe. But I do think it's worth looking at the technology, because, you know, it's technology, and who doesn't like a bit of that? Chris Ford says, good morning, peeps. Good morning to you as well, sir. Ken Hatcher is here as well, but he too missed the show last night. It's, you know, you're all forgiven. You know, you don't have to be here for everything, but I hope you didn't just forget because I did my best to remind everybody. Andy Dovell says, morning. Working on the wobbliest building I've ever worked on. Very tight. Take my time on this one. Yes, please do. We need the audience numbers. Don't anything happen to Andy Dovell. We want you back tomorrow and henceforth. I've heard there are 2 more demo companies on the way out. Unfortunate news for staff of Rye. Yeah. I won't go into the full details because I don't want to drag over the somebody else's dirty laundry in public. But I did speak to Simon Barlow yesterday, obviously devastated by the turn of events that has led to the administration of Rye. A lot of the staff apparently were self-employed, so while they're still going to have to find alternative employment, they weren't directly employed, and some of those that were employed were actually employed by the original company. The original company was actually Rye Plant Hire, and I think the demolition bit only came along about 11 years later. So I think they were employed by the Rye Plant Hire, and they, as a result, are still employed because Rye Plant Hire continues. It's only the Rye Demolition bit that has gone. Ken Hatchett, yeah, it's a funny one that. Our audience seems to break into two different categories. There are those that absolutely want to be here live and take part in everything else, and there's those, and I have to say the bigger audience is those that watch on catch up. I've just had a notification come through. Apparently, I don't know if you know this, the BT Tower in London, very iconic building, has just been sold to MCR Hotels, who plan to preserve the tower and use it as an iconic hotel. Yes, breaking news, just literally coming onto my screen while I was chatting away. I need to do something else. Right, that's it. I can see Instagram again now. I think this is a question for the ages, really. Should the demolition industry be looking at other avenues of work rather than just relying on its only industry to keep them afloat? And I do think, I said that at the time when it came up, I think it cuts both ways. I think there is a danger that it spreads you too thin, but there is also the argument to not keep all your eggs in one basket. I think my concern, and I can only look at it from a personal point of view, I do this and I write. If somebody asked me to do something allied but not the same, would I be very good at it? Probably not. And would that spread me too thin? Yes, it probably would. But it's an interesting one. One of the things that came out, and I think I mentioned this, I've had an email communication, and I've had a follow up to it since as well, suggesting that. Although the CMA investigation and the subsequent near £60 million in fines hasn't actually changed the landscape for those that were involved, there is a suggestion that some companies, major contractors, rather than giving the work to companies that may or may not have been involved in that collusion, are actually giving demolition work to those that are not directly demolition contractors. Now, to my mind, that rings alarm bells. Do I really want a groundworking crew taking down a building? No, I don't. Not just because of my love for demolition, but because demolition people know what they're doing. But is that the case? If anybody's got any experience of that, I'd love to hear from you. Scariest moment of your life was our question of the day. I've already recounted mine. Having a gun pointed at me by an Egyptian who was stood like that. He wasn't stood like that at the time, but you get the idea. Yeah, and I was actually with a Caterpillar representative at the time, who, not surprisingly, given that we were in Egypt, was Egyptian, and he was speaking to the guy holding the gun, and he was speaking in Egyptian. No great surprise there, and I was convinced that between the two of them, they were saying something that sounded a bit like, "Yeah, he's English, he's disposable. Kill him, nobody will miss him." Turns out it was just mistaken identity or something very similar to that. But I'd love to hear your most scary moments. Loads and loads of guesses on our mystery machine today. None of you got it. I won today. I don't win very often, but I did win today. Gaz Evans is here as well. If anybody likes machine models and would like an attachment for an excavator they have lying about the place, I would personally recommend Gem Attachments. Gaz Evans and Company. Go pay him a visit. It's well worth it. Glenn Johnson, good morning to you as well. Andy, I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't throw a curveball like that. Peter McKenna says, question of the day. I used to be fantastic with heights. And funnily enough, heights seems to be AP Kirkbride. I'm coming back to you in a matter of seconds because this... You've really sparked my attention there. Question of the day. Peter McKenna says, and he's not the only one that's got a problem with heights. I used to be fantastic with heights till the day the ladder slipped while I was on the top cleaning gutters out. The lad that should have been footing the ladder had a sneezing fit. I managed to turn around and sit on said ladder before it hit the ground. So the only thing I hurt was my ego. But ever since, I'm shite with heights. Now, you can't see this. I can, because I have the technology. But AP Kirkbride. I don't know who AP Kirkbride is, but I'm going to tell you this. He says, we were recently pricing a large refurbishment soft strip job on a listed building for a main contractor. It was circa £350,000 package. The main contractor gave the package to the groundworks contractor. The groundworks contractor. I mean, I'd be interested to know how much the groundworks contractor was bidding on that job. But bearing in mind, soft strip is one of the most dangerous is the wrong word, hazardous. Let's go with hazardous. I'm bearing in mind the opportunities for slips and trips and falls from height and crap in your eye and cuts and grazes and all of that kind of thing. And they've given it to a groundworks contractor who is basically not qualified. And so saying that, at that point, what is the value of competence cards that are specific to demolition? Because a groundworks contractor will not have those qualifications. I mean, to my mind, the qualifications aren't worth a light anyway, so maybe that doesn't matter. But giving a demolition contract or a soft strip contract to a groundworks contractor, should it happen? Are they really undercutting on price? Was this over fear of collusion? And what does that say about the qualifications held by the demolition contractors? Oh, I can sense this being a talking point. Loads of comments on, on our mystery machine. Blah. Now, I mentioned the fact that our friend Peter McKenna was okay with heights until he had an incident. Gary Muirhead says, being lifted in the man bucket in 25-metre deep cofferdam in the River Forth when we were building the new Queen's Ferry crossing bridge in Edinburgh. Yeah, as I say, I don't actually have a problem with heights. I really don't. I grew up in a tower block flat. You know, so I don't know whether that had anything to do with it. Never really had a major problem with heights. I've been up outside of buildings on ladders, lashed to them, but with bits of string and stuff like that. Doesn't bother me. But access platforms freak me the hell out. And I realise they're doing the job for which they were designed, but that bendy bloody boom thing freaks me the hell out. It really does. Loads and loads of comments on our mystery machine, and I haven't seen anyone getting it right yet, so I think I may still claim the victory. Question of the day. Mick Norton says, in 197, I'm guessing that's the 1970s, I don't actually know when, whilst enjoying lunch at a Rhodesian game warden's timber house, I stepped out to drink my beer onto the veranda, only to be met by his pet, fully grown lion, Henry Kissinger. I may have actually been more scared to meet actual Henry Kissinger, but a full-grown lion, I had an involuntary bowel moment. I think I might have done too. Yeah, imagine coming face to face with a fully grown lion. Good Lord. Yeah, loads more guesses. Still not seeing anyone getting it right. Ken Hatcher, again, it's heights again. The Stratosphere Tower in Las Vegas. Obviously, the Stratosphere Tower, very famous. Does that mean the tower itself, or did you go on the thrill ride at the top that takes you out over the edge? I've done that. I don't even know it's still there. I'm assuming it is. I know the last time we were in Vegas, we actually saw people doing base jumping off of there. It looked like it was an organised thing. I don't think they were doing it illegally or anything like that. But yes, base jumping from the from the stratosphere at the end of the strip there. Get more guesses on our mystery machine, including that one. Mick Norton, not a fan of the music that we had with the Chinese LiuGong loader. He'd rather have heard the machine. I didn't have the choice. I didn't do that. They did that. So, yes. Lots and lots and lots and lots. Mick Saunders, by the way, good show last night, even if we didn't get to the bottom of the problem. Now, Mick has actually very kindly sent me an email this morning. I've taken a look. It was too long for me to deal with now. I'd rather take my time to actually sit there and read it. But I'll come back to you, Mick, as soon as I get a moment. And bearing in mind, I don't actually have a show to prepare for tomorrow because I'm already done. I'm ready to roll for tomorrow. I'll be back to you at some point today. More guesses on our mystery machine. Ken Hatcher says, don't hear much from Neil. It's Neil Edwards on how the country is doing and Wales. No, I'm still waiting for them at the Builders Conference to fix their technology and make a grand re-entrance. Until they do that, not much I can do about it, I'm afraid. More guesses. Much respect to Chris Charlton, a man who is not flash, just gets on with what ends up a good, clean job. He's not flash, although he does love a pair of shoes. I will say that about Chris. He does love a fancy pair of shoes. But yes, he does do the job properly. First time I met Chris, I think he was taking down literally a 2 up, 2 down, not a million miles away from where I'm sat right now. And he, even at that time, he was a startup. I think it was just him and one other person. But he was already doing things right. He'd already set his sights on, accreditations and affiliations and stuff like that. And he's grown and grown and grown. Obviously had a fantastic job up in Edinburgh that I went to see a year or two ago. Yeah, fantastic. Good luck to him. Nice to see his sprockets. Indeed. That poor lad's getting a free shower. Maybe he needed it. Who the hell knows? More guesses, more guesses, more guesses, more guesses, and more guesses and more guesses. Mick Saunders says, now this is where we get into putties. I'll explain what putties are in a minute, thanks to our friend Mick, but he says, question today, when I was on patrol in the Falls Road, that's scary enough, frankly. My putties came undone. I bent down to adjust it, and my mate behind me leapfrogged into my position. He got one in the head. Every day I think of that, and it still scares me shitless. Well, I think you win today. That's bloody awful. Now, somebody... Peter McKenna asked, what's a putty? Chris Ford answered on his behalf. Putty goes over the top of your boot, around your calf to keep the dirt out. Some are wrapped round, some are laced up. Mick Saunders says, putty, bloody word corrector came in. It was a piece of material we tied around the bottom of our combat trousers, mainly to keep the laces in if they came undone, but it was also good for stopping water getting in our boots. His came undone, his friend leapfrogged him, and... in his words, he got one in the head. Bloody awful. I went down Falls Road, very, very, very tail end of the troubles over there. And yeah, that would be in my top 5 of all-time scary things. As I say, saw lots of pubs with bullet holes in, obviously had the roadblocks and various other bits and pieces, but it was just the fact that there was a sign that said Falls Road. If you grew up, as I did in the 70s, it's a place that kind of struck fear into your heart. Jim Turner was enjoying one of our tunes. Yeah, I missed one there. Andy Darvell, that little track load up, that was the MultiOne. Looks the bollocks, Scorcher. Yeah, I'd love to take one for a spin. I really would. Chris Ford says, I wonder if you could fetch all 4 tracks off when they get a bit of wear. I can see no good reason why you couldn't. Mick Norton, slightly less impressed, says track drive looked a bit vulnerable in heavy conditions on that bastardized load. I love the word bastardized. Now, another question of the day answer. I will try to find the photograph to which my wife is referring. Question of the day, that bloody roller coaster in Euro Disney. We've got a picture to prove how scared I was. You know that the photograph you get at the top of the drop on a roller coaster? I have one of my wife in said roller coaster. I think it was a Rock and Roller or something like that. And the look on her face is abject terror. It's not. we found it funny, but you can tell this is not, I'm doing this for the camera. This was, I am about to crap myself. Absolutely terrified. Dan Cullen has gone back to work, although I think he does re-emerge, actually. Z-Quip, late to the party, as we'll know we're on the cusp of the hydrogen solution. But, and I don't know the actual precise meaning of cusp, but we're on the cusp, but we haven't quite cusped. I'm making words up now. Joe Brown Construction Company has just joined us over on Instagram. Even if somebody launched a hydrogen machine today, how are you going to fuel it? So I think there is still scope for something like that Z-Quip, and I actually think the way that they've gone about it, I think is very, very smart indeed. Now, Lou Carney, in answer to our question of the day, I can't actually figure out. Question of the day. I don't even know what that is. I went to one in London some time ago. Never been so shit scared in my entire life. I'll try to look that up on another screen if I can. Peter McKenna says, I'm back to work. Had to walk off site to get to my car. We now have some common sense. Bearing in mind that our friend Peter McKenna is equipped with but the one leg, and he was being forced to walk bloody miles to get to his car. Crazy. Footy says, well, we got told today, if you don't grease your machines, if you don't check the machines, don't wear your PPE correctly, you'll be fired. What does it say to us? Well, it certainly doesn't engender any kind of loyalty, does it? Mick Norton says, a pair of putties are khaki bandage type items, legacy of the Indian Army, that a soldier would wrap around the ankle section of the boots for sport. I wore them regularly in the Far East along with hose tops, or bottomless socks as they were affectionately termed. I've lost the ability to read. Very well said. That was a fantastic introduction. Thank you very much. Do you know, I was I was kind of expecting a bit of fight back from that. I was expecting somebody to say, "Oh, hang on, you've gone over the top there. You're just doing this for clickbait. You've gone way too far." In actual fact, every message I've had has said, "Yeah, you're on the money there." Awful business. I'll text you later. These guys have selling machines as we speak. Look forward to hearing from you. Please let me know. Yes, that was about the BT Tower, which apparently is going to be a hotel. Quite a view from up there, I would have thought. Question today, mine was an accident. A transit van was upside down, four-wheel spinning, and hanging by the seatbelt. Yeah, I would imagine that would be really quite scary. Too many PC giving work to non-demo principal contractors, obviously, work to non-demo companies. Do they not realise if an accident happens and they claim for their insurance, the insurance people can and do refuse a claim if the worker was not CCDO? Do they? I don't know. And do they care? Do they care? I mean, just going back to Mick there, I mean, the way that that's been sold to me, and I am going to go back and try and find the comment that we had, which was from AP Kirkbride over on Instagram. That is a thing that's happened now. And obviously, I'm not naive enough to believe this hasn't happened in the past, but have we seen an uptick in the number of principal contractors giving out demolition work to non-demolition companies? If you have any experience of that, I would be very interested to hear. Peter McKenna says, I once abseiled off Blackpool Tower with the Paras in the 90s. There's no chance I could do that nowadays. No, not sure I'd fancy that either. Mick Norton says, what's happening in demolition where incompetent ground workers are given tender preference? The same thing to a lesser extent happens in piling specialisms. Really? I mean, piling bearing in mind the specialist equipment that you have for piling, I'm astounded at that. This is what Lou was talking about. Is that Passage del Terra? Is that the Passage of Terror? I don't know. but I'm going to go and look it up. Peter McKenna says, used to do unit moves for the Army and Air Force. In the RA used to ambush us and put us up in a house for a couple of nights whilst they used our trucks at roadblocks. We got them back the morning after, fully validated and fueled, and got £20 for breakfast. That said, I wouldn't have liked to have been on the wrong side of them. There's the side of the IRA you don't see. You get breakfast with them. Who knew? Chris Ford says, it sounds like a public toilet in London. Lou has my sympathy. It's a live horror trail with actors. When Reagan from the Exorcist went off the bed and chased me, I screamed the place down. It was too real. Many moons ago. So my eldest son, who is now in his 30s, would have been about 4 or 5. We went on holiday down to Devon as a family. And there was a tour of some caves, and the way they did, rather than just, oh, here's some caves, they did it so that you travelled back in time. So you were taken in by a person from today, and then you got a bit deeper into the cave, and there was somebody from Victorian times, Dickensian times, and you ended up doing sort of Roman Legion, and you ended up with cave folk, actors playing cave folk. And my eldest son, Ollie, morning Ollie, was so scared he actually vomited. I don't mean literally. I do mean physically. That is terrifying. There's my breakfast. He really did do that. I have to remind him of that when I see him this evening. What unit were you with? Says Mick Norton, and Peter McKenna responds with, I wasn't. I worked for Whittle Movers. Whittle Movers. Sounds like the name of a dance troupe. Question today, Peter McKenna says, roller coasters. I love speed, but I like being in control. Not in control, no thanks. See, I don't have an issue with them at all. Thoroughly enjoy them. Any opportunity to get on a roller coaster, I'm there. I'm game. Heights, not a problem. Not a problem at all. In closed spaces, not so keen on that. Being at the wrong end of a rifle, not keen on that either. Right, people, that's going to do us. We are, as I've already said multiple times, I'm going to be back tomorrow. The show is going to be very, very different because it is the 8th anniversary of the Didcot disaster. And we will be marking that. I don't know if anybody else will bother, but we certainly will. I am expecting one or more of the families. Lou, I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Because it really does make me laugh. But yes, tomorrow's show, as I say, it's going to be all about Didcot. If you do decide to duck out, feel free. Peter McKenna says, I've slept in a coffin. Why? How? Was it a dare? Did you just have a coffin lying around? But this one. For those of you who don't know, I've known Lou since she was, 16, 17 years old, I suppose. I mean, she's not much older than that now, obviously, bless her. But yes, I've known her for a long time. She went to school with my wife, and this is how this one came about. Do you remember, Mark, when you, me, and Ruth were at Mark Copping's flat? Now, Mark Copping at the time was Lou's boyfriend, and he put on a Halloween mask and was wielding a knife. That shipped me up too. Now, there is a bit more to that story, which he doesn't mention. Not only was he wearing a Halloween mask, and he was also brandishing a knife, he was wearing his mum's raincoat, I seem to remember. But what was the scariest of all was there was no warning it was going to happen. He didn't tell anyone. He just came in. And rather than coming in and I don't know, chasing Lou about the place or then laughing, he just stood there with the knife raised, and it didn't matter how much we spoke to him, he wouldn't move. So we went from, all right, Mark, you're messing about. That is you, Mark, isn't it? Please stop. Please don't do that anymore. My son's left in a coffin for about 6 months. In his goth years, my dad had it built for him at High Down Prison. There's just so much to unpack in that single sentence. Son went goth, all right, that's not unusual. How do you respond to your son going goth? You get your dad to reach out to a prison to build him a coffin. And I need to know this, did he go the whole hog? Did he sleep like that? Did he? Be interested to know. Peter McKenna says, my dad was in the Loyals, did 9 years in Northern Ireland. Good God almighty. Mick sort of said, mind you, got to say the 6 tours I did in Ulster, not a good time. Scary most days when walking out on patrol. I can absolutely 100% believe that. Yeah, it was. I do remember being told, in actual fact, that, and I think that probably is indicative of what it was like, when the opportunity came for me to go to Belfast. I wasn't told I was going to Belfast. I was asked if I would. And rather stupidly, I said yes, and was basically terrified the entire time. And funnily enough, I wish I could remember the name of the hotel. It was something like the Four Seasons or something like that. But I do remember being told that when I checked in, it was the most bombed hotel in Northern Ireland, which is really reassuring when you're checking in. Question of the day. Mick Knott says, question of the day. On board the Sagala. You were on board the Sagala in Bangkok Harbour in 1968 when dockside securing house up 4-inch diameter wire rope snapped and whistled straight past the top of my head. Lucky day indeed. Do you know, I went out, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I'll tell you anyway. Went out on, just to prove how very, very ancient I am, I went out, flew out on a helicopter to one of the test boring rigs, a bit like an oil rig, but without the oil. And they did a bunch of test bores on the line of the Chat Tunnel to make sure that the rock strata below was sufficiently stable to take the tunnel when they ultimately built it. So this was late 1980s. And I flew out onto one of these rigs. And obviously, you know, it's offshore, so, you know, health and safety and everything else. And we were all given high vis and hard hats. And one of the guys that was with me was actually a photographer. And he took his hard hat off because he couldn't get the camera up to his eye. Took his hard hat off, took the photograph, put his hard hat back on. And as he put his hard hat back on, a bolt, and I'm talking a bolt like that, big lump of metal, basically fell from, I don't know, 100 foot up in the air, hit his hard hat and split it in half. 2 seconds before would have killed him stone dead. He got lucky. Dan Cullen says, I lived around the corner from a pub where 4 army guys were shot by the IRA. Not funny. Great ship, Sir Galahad. Sad end for her, yes. Wasn't the Sir Galahad the one that, what's the guy's name? Simon. He was only on the telly the other bloody day. I can't remember his name. Steve Kerslake over at Construction Sport just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, Steve. Thank you for your participation last night. What was that guy's name? Simon. Oh, for the love of God, somebody help me out here. Simon Weston. That's the fella I was after. Was he on the Sir Galahad? I have a funny feeling he was. Memory's not all that it was, but I'm fairly sure that he was. Lou Carney, we're back on coffins again. The funniest was when we sold the coffin on eBay. My neighbours, when we carried the coffin out, also didn't fit in the girl's dad's car who bought it. So we had to put the seats down and travel home in it. You couldn't write it. Bloody hilarious. Isaac Murphy with his coffin. Yes, same Sir Galahad, lost in the Falklands. Simon Weston, really, I don't know, just had a complete mental block there. I seem to get that a lot these days. Not sure, or was it the Tristan? I'm fairly sure it was the Sir Galahad. Fairly sure it was the Sir Galahad. Let me have a very quick. He was. Simon Weston was on the Sir Galahad on the 8th of June, 1982. That's where he was, and that's how it happened. Comes across as a really smashing bloke. It really does. Let's have a look. Graham Footy Williams says, when it comes up, I worked for British Aerospace when the Portland brought on and where missile came back. What didn't go bang? if it didn't go bang, they put it in the aqua blaster and clean it so they could find out what went wrong. Yeah, I don't fancy that as a job. I'm sure that's not a good way to test missiles, is it? Is it? Yeah, not for me, thanks. Right, people, that's enough of all this stuff and nonsense. Well, you'll get very serious tomorrow, and rightly so. As I say, if you would prefer not to be in on that, I wouldn't blame you. I know some people missed the show last night by accident or by design. If you choose to do either of those tomorrow, wouldn't blame you at all. It won't be the usual stuff and nonsense that we get up to, because it is a very serious matter. I wish a few more people thought that it was a more serious matter. We just keep flying the flag. That's all we can do. All we can do. If you are around at 1 minute past midnight tonight, go over to Demolition News, because we've already set up to drop then the statement that's come out from, or will be coming out from, the Thames Valley Police, which basically has about 5 paragraphs of nothing. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, and we're still working on the investigation, blah, blah, blah. You'll be able to see that a minute after midnight, because we've, it's not a proper embargo, but it's supposed to be going out tomorrow, so that's when we're going to do it. If you'd like to see that, as I say, minute after midnight, you'll be able to see that on Demolition News. Failing that, I'll be here tomorrow, being serious for once. Hope to see you there. Could probably do with the moral support tomorrow, because it's the one show of the year that I genuinely dread. But yeah, we'll be here. We'll be doing that. If you fancy that, then please join us. And just to let you know, next Wednesday, just a quick reminder, we'll be talking all things non-road mobile machinery with the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Burnhope. One of the nice, well, I mean, not everyone at JCB is nice in my opinion, but Tim's one of the best. He really is knowledgeable, but a really nice guy as well. So if you fancy coming along for that, please do that. Forgot what time tomorrow. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, as always. We're basically not doing this show. We're going to do that instead. We're just going to pitch up. I've written an opening for it. I've written an ending for it. Everything in between will be basically down to you. Not you specifically, Nick, but it'll be down to the members of the audience, and quite possibly the members of some of the guys' families who tend to watch those shows, which bit of added pressure, but that's the way it is. Got to go. Bloody great hounds here barking. Does that mean you've got sore feet, or you've actually got hounds? I guess it is probably hounds. Right, people, go and do whatever it is that you do on a Thursday. I'll be back here tomorrow. Hope to see you. All the very best, and thank you very much indeed for all your comments on last night. If you didn't catch it, YouTube at Demolition News 1, the number 1. You can watch it there, or on LinkedIn, or go and have a good day. See you tomorrow.